Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Gold Mine. I have another fantastic show laid out here for you. We got Jason and Greg joining us from the Hive Network, and we're going to get into them and that whole thing in a second. But before we do, make sure y'all are liking the show. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, do all the good stuff. Get your emails whenever we go live, which is, of course, Wednesday afternoons. And I am excited to keep this going. So, Jason, why don't you start? We'll start with you as a quick intro, 10 to 15 seconds. Who are you, where you come from, all that good stuff. And then we'll hit Greg. Giver.
Sure. My name is Jason Barish, CEO and co-founder of the Hive Nation, the Hive Professional Network, and I'm here to make somebody's life better.
Bam. I like it. Greg, how about yourself?
Greg Cooper, COO, co-founder of the Hive Nation, Hive Professional Network, judo coach, mindset coach, athlete coach, and just trying to make the world a better place one day at a time.
Bam. Fits well into the crew here, I think. Shaun, how's things going out in the mountains?
Good. We got snow yesterday, so it filled in a bunch of foot stomp holes out on the single track, so it wasn't quite as janky as it has been over the last few days. So had a pretty good rip and ride overall yesterday. Looking forward to hitting it again today.
As per normal, every day. Now, before we get into any of the clips that we got here that we're going to discuss, Jason, why don't you give us a quick little rundown of the Hive Nation itself, and then we'll start a discussion from there. Go for it.
Sure. So we came up with the Hive Professional Network and the Hive Nation for the fact that people need to advance and to level up. And without a coach, the greatest players in the world, whether it be executive players or basketball players, football players, hockey players, any kind of profession, you could never level up without having somebody pushing you at some point, no matter how great you are at what you do. So we came up with the Hive Professional Network with that in mind, in order to match users with coaches who are looking to advance their game to the next level, whether it be executive, sales, hockey, basketball, like I said. So with that in mind, if you sign up on the Hive Professional Network and you're looking for a sales coach, for example, you may get matched with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different sales coaches that are pre-vetted for your comfort, and you can interview those and find your way to level up. That's the gist of the Hive Professional Network. And then we kind of made the Hive Nation podcast as a spin-off of it, because truth be told, we like to talk to people, and just the ability to have that outreach to talk to people through a podcast seemed like a great idea. And we've interviewed 2 people that are on the screens right now that turned out to be fantastic guests, by the way. So on top of that, we've just been able to outreach, basically across the globe and talk to just some really cool people within that. And whether they were coaches, whether they were just fun guests, it was majority of it is personal and professional development. So we're big on that. We're big on getting to the next level, and that's really the only way you can do it.
I like it. I like it. So were those 2 guests yourself and Greg?
We have interviewed each other before, and that conversation was probably the lowest of the low, but the highest of the high was the other guy that was just sucking on the coffee mug there, and the guy with the ball cap on and headphones. So we can't thank you, gentlemen, enough for being on our podcast, for sure, and or the support that you have given within your network.
Absolutely. It was our pleasure to be on there, truly. And Greg was saying earlier that, Shaun, you didn't hear this, but he was kind of giggling earlier. He was like, well, I get to talk to both of them at the same time now versus just one another. So we really did enjoy those podcasts. It was awesome. Greg, got any thoughts on the Hive Network?
Yeah, Jason hit the nail on the head, but it is truly just to help one more person, right? As a coach, one single coach can only help so many people before their time is maxed out, before their capacity is maxed out, and their expertise is maxed out. So to be able to create a network and a community and a space for that launching pad for success is, it's been a really cool journey. And obviously the podcast has been able to connect us with some crazy high performers. And, it started much like I think a lot of podcasts, just to help ourselves out, just to get us leveled up, talking to cool people. And now it's like, well, why wouldn't you want to share this with everybody so one person can hear it and have that light bulb moment and go, I really needed to hear that today. I'm going to start my company, my, new athletic endeavor, whatever it is. So yeah, it's awesome. And looking forward to what the future brings for it.
Outstanding. Shaun, you got any thoughts on this?
I do. And so one of the interesting things as I was just listening to you guys, I hadn't considered it before in respect specifically to you both or the Hive network, is the fact that you've kind of gone about trying to help people in a bit of a different way. I mean, there's lots of people doing it how you guys are doing it, but a bit of a different way in the sense that there will be individuals out there that figure they've got a few things sorted out in their life. They've learned a few lessons. They've had some accomplishments. Then all of a sudden they want to become the coach of the year. They've never coached before. They don't know how to coach. They're just going to figure out, well, I once hiked around my neighborhood and now I'm a coach. And so what you guys have done is you've taken other coaches and folded them into your network. And now you're not taking on the heat or the pressure of now you're the sole source coach who thinks he knows everything but doesn't know anything. And so I see it a lot out there, actually in the veteran world, where people who are wholly, not as in HOLY, but wholly with a W, wholly unqualified to coach. They've never taken any formal education in coaching. They have no experience in coaching. They have experiences. I mean, they've skipped a rock across a pond. They've got experiences, but they're not experienced coaches. And so there's people who do, there's people who coach, and there's people who've done and coach. And it's that third category that is less common than most people realize. So the doers are out there doing. There's coaches that are out there coaching without much credential. And then there's that third category, which is actually quite rare, the doers and the coachers. So I see you guys you're trying to collect those kind of individuals, vetting them, as it were, which is critical as I see it, to help filter out some of the almost Walter Mitty mindsets out there that believe that they are the next thing since sliced bread. And it's really not the truth. So I like the vetting aspect that you guys have got involved in your business model.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it, Shaun. Thank you.
You got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, the other thing I'd like to just add to that a little bit, and we had a great conversation with a gentleman within our coaching network the other day, and he changed his verbiage to guidance instead of coach. So he's a guider, not necessarily a coach. And I kind of like that you guide somebody down the right path rather than coach them down the right path, I guess, is the way that he kind of put it. And I kind of like the way that he worded it that way. And maybe if more people thought of it that way, instead of being a quote unquote coach and being more of a guidance type of factor in somebody's life, maybe they would see it through somebody's like different way of perspective. Just a thought, but I kind of liked it.
Interesting. I was just thinking as you were talking about that for some people, they might view coaching as a direct, not so much leadership, but like a dictation, right? I'm going to tell you what to do. You go do it. Versus the idea of guidance of, okay, we're going to go this way. Come with me. And then we'll see where it goes from there. I think that's a great point. Greg, you got any additional thoughts on that?
I mean,
there you go,
I mean,
that's fair.
That's totally
you know
fair. What I'm saying?
I like the shirt, Shaun. I'm not going to lie to you. I like the shirt.
I found some things. I know some paths, and I didn't get them out of a book. I mean,
you didn't? Wait a second.
I mean,
I gotta go. No.
Oh man, I'm gonna love putting that on a clip later. Just so you know, there's gonna be no caption. It's just gonna be you going like this over and over. It's fantastic. Greg, you got any thoughts on this?
Just one quick note, and it's a quote and an ideology I love from Sean Cochran. He was the former strength and performance coach at the University of Alabama football team. And he, in an interview, was talking about the players, and they're saying, well, what's the X factor? Is it Coach Nick Saban? Is it you? Is it the weights, the $1 million facility? He goes, look, these guys are coming into the program already a Bentley. I'm just here to put spinners on them. He goes, they can do it without me, but I'm going to just make them a little better, a little faster. So just that take on it, I just love that, because a coach to client relationship or coach to mentee relationship doesn't have to be, they're bringing them up from total failure and total lack of, I don't know anything. No. Most of the time it's, hey, this guy's already won or has been winning, and we're just going to keep adding to that success, or find new success and find new paths. Sean.
I like it. Sean, you got any other thoughts on this before we jump into a video here? Good to go. All right. So I got a few videos lined up here, and I think that this is a great place to start on this. So I'm going to be pulling up a video of Sean, for Sean, just so you guys know. But this is one of my favorites of his. So here we go.
I just like live to fight another day, for sure. But sometimes I just like go all in. And I think that we all need to do that from time to time. I'm not saying regularly. I'm just saying from time to time. What is the line that you live to fight another day, or you just keep on going hard?
So I really love that clip. I really do. And I think it's such a great point, but I want to get your guys' thoughts on it. So Jason, any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So the way that I read into that is that the days that where you go all in is you elevate yourself again to that next level, and then you get to that level, and then you level off, and then you take that in for the next day, and you move on, and then you find that time where you have to push all in again, and then you level up again. You can always go from average to good to great to amazing, but you can't do that from average to amazing overnight. So that's the way that I view that, is that, the ability to go all in and apply yourself, and then find yourself, and then go all in again, is what keeps, that's what keeps me going, for sure. That's what keeps probably the four people on here, as a matter of fact, going. But that's how I view that.
Absolutely. Greg, thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's something I see lots connected to judo, because it's I think everybody can understand when an athlete's going, I can't do that, and they have that I can't mindset. But it's just that simple fact of, if you just put your mindset all into accomplishing a task, no matter how big it is, you'll always surprise yourself what you're capable of physically, because of the mindset and what you are actually capable of mentally. Because this between our ears is a lot stronger than any bicep or hamstring or any muscle on our body. And if you just commit to just going, no matter what the outcome is going to be, whether it's failure, whether it's success, whether it's a learning lesson, that go all in mindset is so critical. Again, not every single day. That's very few people can run on that high octane, but to go all in is critically important. So yeah, great clip.
Absolutely. Sean, have you thought of any new information since we did that one?
Yeah, just a little bit of a spin after watching it again. And the fellas have kind of outlined generally where I was going with that clip. But another way to look at this is to use going all in from time to time as the platform or the means to reestablish what your framework is today. And so we all have our construct of what we think our worldview is, what we think our physical abilities are, what our mental capacity is, what our emotional resilience is. We all think we've got that part figured out. And we do, as far as we've tested it. And so just like judo, which is a pressure testing sport, life should be pressure tested. And so that means every once in a while you put all your chips in to see what you're capable of on that day, to reestablish your construct is bigger now or smaller now. And that's where you get to evaluate yourself. That's where you're giving yourself a passing grade or a failing grade. You're giving yourself a B- or a C+. Maybe it's an A minus. It depends on what you're evaluating. So by putting those chips in, you're doing a cold eye review on yourself in a certain way. And so I think that it's really important in all aspects to every once in a while, just dial it up to the freak show level and see what you got. It's like cooking, man. If you're cooking a dinner for your family and you've got the finest sea salt in the world and you're sprinkling it as a finishing salt on top of the meal, and then you serve it to your family, when is the last time you took a pinch of that salt and tasted it purely for what it is, to establish the intensity of that saltiness? So if you haven't tasted salt for quite a long time, but you're out there seasoning every dish every single time with the assumption that your first time that you tasted salt 10 years ago is still a sound understanding of how to season that dish for your family, you're missing an opportunity to evaluate or recalibrate your sense of saltiness. And so to carry that on through into your life, you can be salty all your life. You can be bitter and twisted and angry in life. And chances are that's solely due to you not pushing your envelope. Your construct is so small that it tastes bitter. But the moment that you throw all your cards in and play with the big game all around you, you get to see sugar over there. And so you get to go taste that, and you get to go smell this, and you get to go see that. Things that you've never experienced before. That to me is putting all the chips in. When you put them all in, what it generally does is it presents new opportunities, new wisdoms, new visions, new experiences, new kicks in the shin, new senses of what salty really is. And I think that that's super important to every once in a while pattern interrupt yourself and push so hard that you break through into a new level of hard.
That is a great point. And there's an additional thing onto this that I want to touch on that I've been thinking about for the last little while. And that's it. I think we lack the understanding of what all in really is. I think a lot of times we think of the World Series of Poker, right? And I'm going to use poker as the analogy because I think it's just a great way to look at it. Is you see it on TV, the last hand, right? The big hand. I'm going to boom, all my chips are in, and then they stand up and they walk around and they do the whole thing, and because that's their it's almost a last ditch effort rather than a tactical all in, right? Where you're looking at your cards, you're like, this is probably the best hand. You're making a tactical decision. I'm all in. And then you watch as the other person starts to freak out. And then I think a lot of people also forget how many times that happens through a whole tournament, through a whole life, through a whole sequence of events, that there's going to be multiple all-ins over time. And if you use them tactically, if you use them smartly, you can use it to push other people outside of their comfort zones. You can use it to push your opponents or your competition or whatever it is. And I've seen this you see it in MMA, you see it in martial arts across the board, where one competitor comes out and they are explosive and really handsy, really fast, especially in the what are those, in the pictures beforehand, the weigh-ins, when everyone's like doing the fists, and there's that one dude who's just like jumping around and he's trying to be all in, but it's not tactical. It's just it's everything. It's not a tactical all in, if that makes any sense. So I want to get your guys' thoughts on that and the ability to use it, use your own all in moments tactically or wisely through life rather than just whenever. Greg, I'm going to come to you first. What do you think?
Yeah, I really like your poker analogy there, and the notion of tactically going all in. You know, in the business world or just in life in general, I think it can be used as a really good judge of character and integrity. People, when they're faced in a decision-making scenario, whether it's a boardroom, whatever, they present an idea. I'm going to present my idea, Greg Cooper's idea. People are going to disagree. They're going to have opinions. They're going to have feedback of some kind. And that time, it's, am I going to go all in on what I said? Do I truly believe what I said? Do I truly believe the idea I just presented to the people? Am I willing to get cake on my face to try to execute that idea? Hey, we've done it this way for a long time. I think if we try it differently this time, it's going to be risky because we haven't done it this way. And at the end of the day, it's on me. This is my call. But if the team's good with it, I'm good to go all in. Let's go. So I think it can be a really good judge of the integrity you have and the character you have on, are you willing to go all in on what you're saying and put it out there to the world, put it out there to the team?
I like that. Jason, thoughts?
Chance, what you just described there is psychological warfare. And psychological warfare is, I use it every single day of my life, whether it be against somebody or to myself, to either motivate myself or to motivate somebody else or to flatly get what I want. And psychological warfare works whether you use it in a different tonality or whether you're actually putting pressure on somebody through your words or through your actions. And yeah, I think people, not just myself, do it on a daily basis without even really recognizing it. But for myself, I definitely have recognized that using psychology within, whether it be sales, whether it be executive, whether it be coaching, whether it be just interacting with somebody that you need something else out of, works more often than not.
Absolutely. Shaun, thoughts on this?
I do. So, when you're explaining the poker situation, the world championship of poker, I've never watched one, but I have seen tiny little clips, so I have a sense of it. And so I was putting those little clips together in my head as you're, explaining the situation. And here's what I was thinking. A couple of different things. One is that as observers or someone who's watching the show on TV, what they will see is several people sitting around a table playing cards, and all they'll see is the cards being played. They'll see faces. They'll see the guy with the big gator sunglasses. You'll see some dude with a cowboy hat. You'll see somebody who's got like his leather or his crocodile boots or whatever. Everyone's all swagged out. Everyone's got their personality. Everyone's got their little shtick. And that's all surface level stuff. The cards as they're flipped over, that's all surface level stuff, because the actual game that's being played is invisible at the high level. And so I think that that's an important aspect of it. If you're being tactical and strategic in whatever game you're playing, a lot of it is invisible at the high levels. But what the viewer sees is some dude with a pair of big orange blast wraparound reflective sunglasses and some goofy cowboy hat. And they're going to emulate that guy. They're going to think that the stuff that's right in front of their nose that's so visible is actually the secret sauce. They'll be out buying a pair of crocodile boots on Amazon by the end of the day to become a better poker player, because they only see so deep into the game that they think that the game is the surface level stuff, but that isn't the case. That stuff is the stuff that begins at the ground zero level of now you're a noob. Buying your wraparound sunglasses, that's day one. Buying your crocodile boots, that's day three. But 10,000 days later, it doesn't matter what you're wearing. None of that is important. What is happening at that level is the invisible game. So it's hard to see how to play the game well if you can't see the game. But instead of understanding the game, what people do is focus on the obvious stuff, which is the wraparound sunglasses. So everyone's keen to put sunglasses on, buy their poker hat, put on their favorite crocodile boots, get their deck of cards, and start playing their 10th game ever in their life and thinking like they've got the code cracked. But that is not the case. It's how deep you see the game. And you can't understand how deep the game is if you can't see any deeper than level 2. So how best to understand what's actually going on in that world championship poker game? It's best if you watch that on TV, sitting next to someone who's been playing poker for a couple of years, where they can explain to you that, dude, don't be distracted by the wraparound sunglasses. That's nonsense. What you need to be looking for is how he taps his knee with his index finger when he gets nervous. Or you need to be looking for how he leans back and his right shoulder raises up when he's anxious. You need to see the invisible signs that are extremely visible if you know what to look for. But you ain't looking because you don't know, because all you see is the wraparound sunglasses. So the game, there's levels to every game. The game is never visible until either you've played it a long time or you have someone sitting next to you who can outline the levels that are invisible to you that you can get to work on in the future. And that's actually called coaches.
It's almost like there's a whole job wrapped around that in some way. You guys got any additional thoughts on this before we jump into another?
I got one, and that's why they call it being present, Shaun. Being present in the time when you're at, rather than thinking too far ahead or too far behind. Being present and being, having the ability to notice that stuff, using the psychology around it is 1,000% to your. And you know what? Maybe it would work, Shaun, if you went and played poker buck naked instead of the wraparound sunglasses and the cowboy hat.
That would be very superficial.
I'm disturbed by that image.
But might work. Greg, you got any additional thoughts on this?
Really quick, this is just a challenge to anybody listening to this. Challenge yourself to be curious, dig deeper into whatever it is, whether it's poker, whether it's whatever. Go deeper than just the wraparound orange sunglasses, cowboy hat, and crocodile boots.
100%. I thought you were going to challenge everybody to go naked to the casino just to see what was going to happen, but
that'll
definitely don't recommend that. Definitely won't be playing poker very long, let me tell you that. All right, so I got another video here. This goes into, Greg, you were talking a little bit earlier about the integrity of the person, and I want to touch on that with this video. So here we go.
I think it centers around, finding that value system. And once you live through your values, decisions in life become a lot less difficult because you step into exactly like where your foundation and where your core is. And that's never, ever going to lead you astray. It might lead you to some rough roads, and it's probably more so that uphill battle, but it's never going to be the wrong decision for you.
Bam. Thoughts on that, Jason? What are you thinking?
That's fun because not too long ago, Greg and I talked about where ego comes into integrity and how ego dictates where your integrity takes you, and the values within your whether you're. And I don't mean ego necessarily in a bad way. I don't mean ego as in necessarily as in over the top in front of everybody's face. I'm talking about just whatever drives you to take you to that, value, as she talked about. The value within whatever you can find within yourself to portray to the outside world is far more important than what you think that your interior ego or integrity is.
I like that. Greg, got any thoughts?
Yeah, great clip. I wasn't paying attention on who it was, so I apologize for that because I was truly trying to listen to it, and it makes me really think about how difficult that is. Integrity, following your values, knowing what your why is. It gets talked a ton, like ad nauseum by myself, by everybody in the network, by everybody who's coached or been there. But it's difficult and it takes time. It takes a lot of introspection, really understanding, looking deep into who you are. Why am I doing these things? Why do I say the things I do? Why do I hang out with the people I hang out with? Why are they in my circle? So it takes a lot of time to get to a point where you have discovered your why and you're leading a life driven by your values and your core beliefs. And then just when you think you have it right, something's going to change. The environment changes, your situation changes. So it's an ever evolving thing that if you truly want to live like that, I believe that you have to constantly be working on it. You're not going to arrive at that destination of, oh, I found my why. Life's good now. No. If you find your why, that's something that can be done. But then it's okay. Now, how can I continue to live this path that I've set that I think is the right one? So it takes constant work to have that integrity of knowing your why and living with your core values.
Absolutely. Shaun, what are you thinking?
Yeah, Catherine puts out a great clip. She's been great on the show. Love to see her back again soon. So here's what I'm thinking. There's a couple of different ways to consider the subject, and you can look at it from the micro or from the macro. And so the micro, you can kind of create like your daily checklist of all the things that you got to do, and maybe get 70% of it done, 93% of it done. Doesn't much matter. You're chipping away on all of the things that you think are going to make you a better person that day, that week, that month, that year, that decade. So that's the micro. And then there's the macro, which actually I find a lot of people don't spend much time at. In the micro, you can ask yourself all kinds of questions. Why am I doing this, and why am I doing that? And how can I do it better? And what do I have to do to be a better person, a better blah, blah, blah. So you can really micronize that stuff. But then at the macro level, and again, very few people do this, at least often enough, just sit down in the morning with your coffee and think, wait for it, who am I? Who am I? Like, how many times have you guys asked yourself that this week? It's rare because it's such a big question. People don't sink their teeth into, who am I? Like, what is this all about? What they will do is they'll duck that macro question, either because it's uncomfortable or it's too big or it's too philosophical or it's too intangible. Instead of thinking of the macro, they'll dive straight into the micro. Today, I'm going to wash the dishes and make sure they get put away this time. And so it's all the little micro wins. And micro wins are good, man. Stack up those micro wins. Start figuring out who you are in this day, this week, this month, this year. But don't ever forget the macro. What is even going on right now? Who am I? Who are we? What are we doing right now? Not the why am I doing it. I understand the why. That's I can clearly see my why for quite some time now. But who am I in that why? Why am I in this why? Like, these deeper philosophical questions at the macro level aren't considered often enough. And so I'd say that, like, at least once a week, I like to sit down and think, who am I this week? Not like, am I going to be Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde? But who is Shaun this week, and how am I trying to understand my existence in this existence? I think it's not a bad thing to do every once in a while.
I totally agree with that, and I think there's an additional point to that as well, in that when your preconceived conditions, the things that you believe right now, get challenged. So, Shaun, before you showed up, we were joking in the green room, and I was like, there was a time where I said something on the show, and you questioned me immediately, like, are you sure about that? And I was like, I had to think about it, and like, yeah, I'm pretty sure about that. And you were like, yep, cool. I just wanted to make sure. And it's those points that I think we don't do enough. We don't get challenged to really dive into not only why we're doing it, but who we are in it, as well as, is that assumption correct based on the evidence that I have over the last 6 years or however long I've been working on those micro things. So I think that's something else to take into consideration with it as well, is when was the last time you actually challenged yourself on what you believe to be true? Jason, you got any thoughts on this?
I have just a follow-up question just to Shaun a little bit. So, Shaun, at what point does whatever you have going on in the background affect your macro? So, for example, I'll use a death in the family, a tragic event. How does that affect the who am I question?
That's a dang good question, Shaun. What do you think?
Really good question. No one's ever asked that before, and I've never really thought about it. So I'm giving you an off-the-cuff answer, if you don't mind. And I think that really what we're talking about here is we develop our sense of who we are. We develop our actual lives, our existence, our path forward from the present and into the future. I think we develop it through the extremes of the micro and the macro. I think that we understand our world around us based on how interpretive we are of the moment, how much we're paying attention to what's going on. And so we establish who we are, but then big things happen, as you stated, a tragic thing, we'll call it. And that tragedy might reframe our sense of the macro, but it probably won't change too many things about the micro, because the micro things are going to get done anyway, irrespective of the tragedy in front of our nose. I find that the big moments in life impact my macro. Who am I in this moment? Why is this happening? Why am I here? Big moments are opportunities to review who we are in this big existence called life. And so I think that rather than considering the tragedy as just simply tragic, I think there's layers underneath that tragedy where we get to deal with the moment, but then also deal with who we are in the moment and use that impactful, momentous occasion, whether it's positive or negative, use that to reframe our worldview at the macro level. So perhaps, as an example, perhaps that means that when that tragedy occurs, I can sit back at a macro level and think, I got to try harder to help my fellow man. Bam, that's enough. And is that working on my why? Is that bolting on more to my why? Perhaps. But then the other philosophical question is, who am I in this tragedy? And that should help you refine how you're going to deal with this thing on a holistic level, rather than just going straight to the emergency first aid kit and putting Band-Aids on the moment. I think that big, momentous occasions are opportunities to reframe who we are in our existence. I hope that answers your question.
I like that. Greg, you got any thoughts on this?
Yeah, just to go back to what Shaun said on the, asking yourself, who am I? I love that. And I practiced something similar to that for a long time. Long is maybe a bad word, but for 3 to 4 years. Took this course one time, a gentleman named Don Miller. And in that course, part of it was write your obituary. What's your obituary look like? When you're gone, when your physical presence on this earth is gone, what would somebody write about you? So you write it from the third perspective, and it was an interesting, but I've evolved it since then. So now I think about it. I meditate quite a lot, and sometimes I'll meditate when, what would people say to me at my funeral? What would I tell to my grandkids? What are the stories that are going to come? Are they good? Are they bad? Is it about what? Just to go deeper into that and kind of a different angle on who am I? What did I do? What did I accomplish? Who did I help? What impact did I create? And I look at it from these different angles that maybe other people would think that's a little weird, or maybe it's a little morbid, but it is. And looking at it from those weird angles, I think, can gain some unique introspective thoughts, and it gets heavy at times, but yeah, it's just another way to go about it.
I think that's important. You bring up a great point in the fact of it can be challenging, it can be heavy, it can be, difficult. Or I think a lot of people view their own death with fear and avoidance rather than acceptance and acknowledgement. And I think that is a key point that you bring up to understand that within your life, it's going to end at some point. there's no, you're not getting out of that. That's going to happen. And I think that's just such a fantastic point you brought up. Any other thoughts on this before I jump into something else? Shaun, what do you got?
Yeah, Greg, as you framed it up there, which is a great way to evaluate things or refresh your worldview from time to time. What I'm hearing is a guy who's telling himself a story about a movie that he wants to live out till he dies. So you're talking about the magnificent, epic Hollywood production of your life that you want your grandkids to know about. You want to be able to, in your mind's eye, have your grandkids look at you like, a Hollywood superstar in your movie. Now, I'm not saying that you want the vanity of it, but you want your grandkids to aspire to be you in their lives. You want your grandkids to catch more fish than you in your life. You want your kids to throw stronger judo throws in their life as compared to you. You're creating a vision in your head, the movie in your mind that's called your life, and you're wondering what your grandkids will think of that. Well, they're going to think that your life sucked if you didn't kick ass, if you didn't go out there and write a blockbuster in your life. And you're the only one writing it, buddy. It's your freaking epic blockbuster to write. So the stories in your head that you want your grandkids to hear about, they're kind of unwritten still. You got to go kick that ass. You got to make that Hollywood blockbuster. You got to be the superstar in your super mega movie in order for the grandkids to sit up and pay attention and think, I want some of that. And so I think that every dude I've ever talked to who talks about grandkids talks about, I can't wait to take my boy fishing, my grandson fishing. Dude, you've never fished. What are you talking about? You don't know how to put a worm on a hook. Where did the Harlequin romance novel enter into your life? The alternate reality that you've never lived, but you want to live that out as a fantasy in your epic movie in your mind, but you've never fished. And so I think it's contingent, or I was going to say it's contingent upon living a full life in order to have a full movie. But I think what it is contingent upon is to living a magnificent life that's even just a few years long. 10 years of magnificent living is better than 90 years of yawnerific living. The grandkids aren't inspired by mediocrity. What they're inspired by is a kick-ass superhero who has lineups to get in to watch the movie. That's what we're all supposed to be writing for anyone who's following in our generations.
100%. Thinking about that, I was just thinking about my granddad, and what are some of the things that I remember about my granddad that he did throughout his life? I know he served in World War II. I know he was a pilot for a little while in the Air Force. That's about it. He spent most of his life after the war just living. He didn't do a whole lot. So I love the fact that you brought that up, Shaun, because that's an excellent point in that if I want my grandkids to actually sit up and take notice in this day and age, in 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, their attention span is going to be not the greatest. I would hope they'd be better, but society is going that realm. You got to be the John Wick of your story. You got to be that dude kicking ass every day. Jason, you got any additional thoughts on this? Oh, you just got to. There we go.
I really like that actually, and I really like the your grandfather story there too, Chance. But at the same time, when my grandfather was alive, I looked at him like he was Jesus. Like he couldn't do no wrong, and every story he told me, I was like on a bated breath. Like he couldn't say enough words. That everything that he said was the Hollywood blockbuster, as Shaun put it, and I was like craving more. And I just now that those generations are passing on, it's probably a pretty good warning to the people who are listening to this, that if they do have their grandparents still alive, that you probably should cherish it more. Even your parents are still alive. You probably should cherish those every words, because those words are going to go away one day and you're going to miss those words. So that would be my fair warning, that take in every story, even though they may have told it 153 times, you listen to it like it's the first time you've ever heard it, and take every word in and cherish that moment.
That's a great point. Absolutely. We got a comment on this, and I think it's hilarious. Winterstorm jumped in here. He said, Harlequin romance novels and fishing. Never thought I would jump into those two things in the same sentence. Thanks, Winterstorm. Absolutely. Any other thoughts on this before we jump into the last clip? Shaun, what do you got?
I do. I just want to, it popped into my head, and I think it's an important thing to say, even if we don't make it to the next video clip. I'm curious as to what everyone thinks. One of our responsibilities is to gain wisdom from our forefathers through grandparents and such, and through our peers. And it's one of our jobs to raise a good family, raise good kids. And so we try to gather information from the world around us, and then we try to impart it into those that are immediately around us. And so I think a lot of parents will focus more on generational wealth, whereby you're trying to set up your kids. Every generation tries to set up the next generation for not an easier way of life, but a wealthier lifestyle. So the comfort and quality and opportunities are more available to them than they were to you. And so try to create generational wealth to create more successful future generations. Now, that's not just Shaun's idea. That's a lot of people's ideas. But then there's the generational wealth that just doesn't get talked about too much. You can look at a bank account all day long, and those are just ones and zeros. But the real data that someone should be tracking is the generational wealth of passing on wisdom, passing on knowledge to your kids so that they can pass it on to their kids. There's a lot of times, I can't count how many times I've said to my boys, our boys, that, boys, I'm not trying to teach you. I'm trying to teach you how to teach your boys. What we're doing right now is you're learning how to raise your family. You're not learning how I'm raising you. So pay attention to what's going on. Pay attention to what I'm saying. Pay attention to what you're thinking, because your sons will have those same thoughts, and you've got to figure out how to do this better than I'm doing right now. Your job is to do better in the future than I'm doing right now. So it's not about the money for generational wealth. It's about making your people around you better generational wealth.
Bam. Nice mic drop there. I really missed those mic swooshes. Jason, you got any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I do. As a matter of fact, and that's great, Shaun. The every father who's listening to this should be the greatest mentor to any of your children that you could ever be, because those kids are looking for those wisdom, those words of wisdom, and a mentor, a great mentor, does that on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, on a minute-to-minute basis, that you can prove that it's not about, like you say, generational wealth. It's about generational wealth of knowledge, not necessarily of dollar signs. And experience and wisdom will take you further than money.
I like that. Greg, thoughts on this?
Yeah, I don't have kids yet, but my grandfather and my dad are two of my longtime biggest mentors. Learned a lot of life lessons from them and continue to do so from my father. But something when Shaun was talking about, I'm not teaching you, I'm teaching you to teach others and to teach the next generation. That made me think about when I'm coaching judo. It's always a never-ending battle, especially with younger minds, short attention spans. They're excited. They're at judo. They're with their friends. They're having fun. How do I articulate that information so they can go forward and make it better? And the one thing I say to any level of judoka I'm coaching is, if I get better at judo, what happens to my teammate? And they go, oh, they get better at judo. And I'm like, exactly. So the better we get, the better our teammates get, and the harder this is going to be, because they're going to know what we're doing and why we're doing it. So we're teaching each other to sharpen, iron sharpens iron. So it's always imparting, what I learned from in the judo sense, what I learned from my original senseis. What did they learn from their senseis? And you trace that all the way back to, well, now it's like 18 generations deep of judo knowledge. How can you do that to your family and to your kids? So I think it's so critically important. And to go back to the start of the podcast, being present and having that ability to just be present, listen, and understand, who am I? Why am I listening? Why should I listen to that thing my dad told me 10 years ago? It didn't make sense then, but damn, he was onto something. Right? One of the things I'll share that my dad always said, he goes, never do more than you're willing not to complain about. That plays in my head all the time. Never do more than you're willing not to complain about. First time my dad told me that, I went, this job sucks. Of course I'm going to complain. We're digging holes in the ditch. But now it's like, oh, I get it. So I'll let everybody unwind that one for themselves. I have an understanding of it, and it's something that really stuck with me on the generational knowledge passing.
I love that. That is fantastic. I got a couple of comments here that I want to touch on to that point, and they are just fantastic. So Winterstorm jumped in here. He said, my idea of generational wealth is for my children's baseline starting point to be my highest peak. Knowledge, money, or experience, I pass on my triumphs and challenges, which I think is excellent. But this concept can be flipped as well, is that if you don't want to do the work, guess who has to? That next generation. If you don't want to better yourself, well, that next generation has that. They're starting farther back, right? So the better we can do that. And then Tanya dropped this piece, and it is fire. Here we go. Tanya, to the youth, they need to record the stories of their elders. To the elders, they need to live lives worth writing about. Had that now, if she had a mic here, I would tell her to drop it, but that is fantastic. Now we got a few minutes left. I got any other thoughts on this before we jump into the last video we got?
Yeah,
John?
those were both great comments. So that's freaking awesome. It's good to be back in the live chats, by the way. I mean,
100%.
Chance Burles gets to do his comment magnificence. I got another comment. But those are great comments. And so I really love that. That just builds off of everything that the guests are saying. So Greg had been talking about judo, 18 generations of judo, we'll call it. How did it manage to do 18 generations? How? I'll tell you how. Because it has value. Nothing lasts 18 generations in the sense of a wisdom trajectory or a wisdom path or a direction of singular pursuit of excellence like judo. That would never have lasted as long as it did unless someone thought it had value. Because as a sport, it's not enough value. As a martial art, it's not enough value. It's the intangibles that are bolted onto judo. Things like be honest, be a righteous teammate, live a good life. It's all of the other things that get unpacked as you're doing the art. It's the things that get unpacked as you're living that life. If you commit to the purity of judo, and that's all you do for the rest of your life, you do nothing else. You never work. You barely eat. All you do is judo, 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 judo. What you're not doing is a sport. What you are doing is a lifestyle. And so I think that the lifestyle aspect of honestly understanding what you're pursuing with clarity so that you can engage in it with totality, called judo. A lot of that gets watered down by all of the white noise of the rest of our lives. I need 12 meals today. I need a new scooter. What's on Netflix? All of the white noise that gets wrapped into our lives dilutes the purity or the clarity of pursuing a righteous life through a martial art called judo. And so it's our job to make sure we keep an eye on those things. It's our job to make sure that we know what's good for us and we know what sucks. Trim down the suck, pursue more excellence in the things that feel right to us deep inside and we know they're good for us. Be clear about what you're pursuing in life as to whether it's good for you in the moment or good for you for the rest of your life. The things that are making differences 10 years from now in how you think rather than today on how you move. I think it's really important that you always dig deeper into your decade from now existence and see, is this serving my future self as well as it could?
Dang. Jason, you got any thoughts on this?
It'd be hard to top that, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. Thanks, Shaun.
Yeah. He's a bit of a mic dropper every once in a while, let me tell you. Greg, you got
I'm
any-
actually
what do you got?
I'm actually going to get Shaun a personalized shirt made up, and it's going to say Shaun the Monk Taylor or something like around that, and I'm gonna force him to wear it out everywhere. That's just it, and then have people come up to him and ask him about, like, why are you the monk?
The challenge really is you can't really force Shaun to do anything. Like, he's a friggin' ninja, right? So to force him to do anything is going to be a bit of a challenge. But I'm up for it. If I'm down to help, you let me know how I can help. I will help you out. Greg, you got
Appreciate that. Thank you.
No worries. Greg, you got any thoughts on this?
We can continue on for another hour talking about what Shaun just mic dropped there. But what I will say is that's the critical thing that a lot of people miss about judo. Even people that do judo. Ju means the way, do is gentle. We focus so much on the gentle because it's about, fluidity and using and blah, blah, blah. No. It's the way. The two guiding principles of judo: mutual welfare benefit for all, maximum efficiency, minimum effort. You focus on the way, those principles are the way. That's all you need.
It's almost like there have been philosophers or people in general that have discussed this for many, many years. Interesting.
I'm not sure why it's lasted 18 generations.
Right?
Doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense.
It's all just craziness, I tell you. Now, last comment of the night. This one is perfect. Tanya says, Shaun Tzu. That's the shirt right there, Shaun Tzu. That's going to be it forever. You now have a new nickname. The collective and the gold mine have heard it. Shaun Tzu it is. Thank you, Tanya, for that. I appreciate it.
I'll give you that it's funny.
That is amazing. So we are just about at time here. Let's get some final thoughts on everything we've talked about so far. But before we do that, I just want to say thank you guys, Jason, Greg, Shaun. Fantastic conversation. This has been awesome. We have covered quite a bit. So anything you got left rattling around the back of your head, Jason?
I just want to thank you guys for the opportunity and to have you guys within our network, and to have, somebody that I look up to and that I feel that I can, reach out to, if I have a question. Obviously, you guys have been there for us from day one and kind of been our cheerleaders with pom-poms and the whole 9 yards. So, I really can't thank you guys enough. And this conversation today was, it wasn't exactly sure what we were getting into when we started, but I would love to do this again. This is exactly why I wake up in the morning.
Bam. And the pom-pom is actually Shaun's hair. That's the pom-pom. Greg, you got any final thoughts?
Yeah, I do. I want to wrap it up saying, we talked a lot about the mentors, and at the end we were talking about the generational passing of knowledge, but it's also the present passing of knowledge. And that is something that I think the collective, the Hive, just the network, Mentel, Canadian podcast, I could rattle off this list for a long time, but the present collective passing of knowledge that we are doing as a network is so incredible. And I know there's a lot of people in it that appreciate, what you guys are doing at the collective. And it's truly incredible to be able to talk to high performers on a daily basis across all walks of life. So the present passing of knowledge, I think, that our network has is second to none. So keep up the good work, gentlemen.
We will do our best, as we always do. Shaun, you got any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think that I'll just end it off with, fellas, I really appreciate you coming on the gold mine and bringing the heat. And more importantly, it's not the heat, I suppose, that I'm thinking of as the correct word. What it is just the campfire more than the heat. We're all just kind of sitting around a campfire, man, and chirping back and forth, bouncing ideas off each other. No one's got anything figured out more than the guy next to them in the campfire. But what we do have is our combined minds together at the campfire will always be able to figure out more than just our singular minds. So bringing the heat, well, what we're doing is bringing the campfire and solving the problems as a collective. So I do dig it. Thank you, fellas.
Absolutely. There's a great analogy in there in that if we all bring our own torches, we can put it together and make our own campfire as a team, as a collective. So I really do appreciate the conversation. This has just been fantastic. And I do appreciate the comments as well. Thank you guys so much for joining in. It's nice to have the lives and the comments and all the different stuff. It is a lot of fun. So appreciate it. I'm going to end with the same thing I always do. Continue to learn, build, grow. We'll see y'all next week. Chimo.
Chimo.